Everyone, and thank you for coming back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Jacqueline and I am now ending my Master's of Social Work program, but I make videos here on YouTube about being a social work student. This video is going to be all about this past semester of my social work program, but basically an overview now that I am done. I will link below the first semester video in the description box that I have already done, so hopefully that will kind of make this video make a little bit more sense. Because I want to cover everything and I don't want to make this video too long, I will just get right into it. So I am making this video in early April when I did plan on making it probably in May when I completely finished the program, but due to the current issues in the world right now with the virus, I am all online. Just like many or maybe all colleges, everything went digital, so all my classes are online and whatnot, but since I really only have a couple papers left until I'm done with school, I figured this will be a good as time as any. Just like my other videos, including the one that I did before this one of like my first semester, I'm going to be just discussing from my experience. So this is from my experience in a program in America in the New England area, and so I will be also going class to class like I have in previous videos as well and just giving overview things. So although this is my experience, some things may fit a program that you're looking into that's close to you, some may not, but I think for a majority, a lot of social work programs are very similar, and I'm trying to give some like basic information, I guess, that I feel would help people who are looking into going into a social work program. So yeah, I always recommend kind of doing a little bit of your own information research according to the program that you're looking into. Give a little like brief overview. I got my bachelor's of social work degree last year, and I went into the same school that I got my bachelor's from that I do for my master's now, so I really didn't apply anywhere else. I just knew my school had a master's program and I wanted to go there, so I went to the same school. So I don't have experience doing my bachelor's and my master's from different schools, but that is definitely possible. You would just have to make sure that credits transfer over correctly and things like that. Again, checking with your own school system and whatnot, but you usually don't need a bachelor's degree in social work to get a master's degree in social work. Usually you just need a bachelor's degree in general, but I have found a lot of people who don't have a bachelor's in social work that get their master's have something related to human services, such as like psychology or sociology, maybe even like criminal justice if they want to go into social work with the criminal justice field, things like that. So yeah, although I got my bachelor's in social work, you don't necessarily need to do that, but you will need a bachelor's degree. So with my school, there are definitely different ways to doing college in general, really. Usually there is full-time, part-time, but for my master's program, they offered an advanced standing program. So what an advanced standing program is that you will get your degree in 1 year. In order to qualify for those spots, for me there was only like 18 spots-ish in my program and like a couple hundred applied, so it is tougher to get into that, but I was very fortunate and I am very proud to say that I did get into the advanced standing program, so I was able to get a full master's degree in 1 school year. So usually full-time would be 2 years if you just keep going through all the classes. Part-time is usually 3 to 4, depending on how many classes you take per semester. The advanced standing and full-time is different in the way that with my advanced standing program, I jumped right into the second year. So of a normal 2-year degree, there's a first foundation year where you get like, I guess like maybe like overview of the BSW related generalist things, but also new master's related information. And then the second year is your like prime year where you put a lot of that into practice. So I jumped right into the second year. I really hope that made sense and I explained it well. But yeah, so my experience will be going off of that second year of an advanced standing program. To give some brief overview information, I didn't have one test my whole entire year. Usually social work, I found in my experience, there really isn't any tests, maybe 1 or 2 quizzes, that kind of thing, but this year I had no tests at all. It was all papers, so it's all very much like long research papers, or just the midterms are papers, that kind of thing, essays, assignments. There's also like maybe some little activities depending on what class it is, so I'll get more into that when I go class by class. But yeah, just a heads up is I hear a lot of other social worker programs as well just really focus on papers. I also want to throw out there that you can make money with social work. I know it is a really common myth that social workers cannot make money or don't, or you know, there's definitely more things out there besides taking kids away, because that's a common myth as well. In many areas, including mine, having your master's in social work does pay more usually, and you have a little bit more opportunities in different job ranges if you do have your master's opposed to just having your bachelor's. In my area, bachelor's degree in social work usually is just a lot of case management jobs, which is awesome as well. So it all depends on what you want to be and do as a social worker, depending if you want to get your master's or not. It's just like a really, really brief overview. There are tons of things that social workers can do. It is such a broad job range. You can go anything from like mental health, schools, hospitals and healthcare settings, immigration, NICU, things like that, hospice care, elderly and working in like nursing homes. You can do like the prison system and criminal justice system. There's substance abuse, there's military social work, there's child and family services, domestic abuse, therapy related things. So when you get your master's degree, you can more do this side of the social work, but yeah, so therapist, homelessness, a lot of advocacy work, definitely like affordable housing and things like that. So yeah, and it also depends on what population you want to work with, and there's all types of ranges for that as well. So do you want to work with kids? Do you want to work with babies? Do you want to work with teenagers, adults, the elderly? There's so many different populations that you can work with and so many settings that you can work in. So that's like one of the huge things I love about social work, is there are so many options to choose from. So at my school, there is a clinical and a macro path. Clinical is more hands-on, more direct one-on-one work with clients and small groups even. And that is the path that I personally chose, whereas macro is more large communities, state, nationwide. You make big decisions. Maybe you're like pretty high up in an agency. I think both are super important though, because even though, you know, I'm going down the clinical path, I also need to know macro related things. I need to know policies. I need to know laws that affect where I'm working, the population I'm working with. And even when you're macro, you need to know what's going on at the clinical level to, I think, really help like effectively in a way. It needs to be like a mix, I guess. And for me, I'm going to take the clinical path and I'm going to get my license in clinical social work, which I'll get a little bit more to that later. But I am not opposed to doing macro work, and I think it's actually important. And in the NASW Code of Ethics, so National Association of Social Work, we have a code of ethics, and they do say they recommend social workers doing volunteer work. They recommend doing, you know, bigger advocacy work, and I love that. Social justice issues, I'm really passionate about that kind of thing. So yeah, anyone can actually read the code of ethics. If you just type in and Google NASW Code of Ethics, you can kind of see for free what the code is, and we're kind of read up on that a little bit. That goes over like confidentiality and social work boundaries and what we just have to do ethically as social workers. So yeah, that's a side note. Regarding licenses, every state is going to be different. So my state calls an LCSW licensed certified social worker. And what that is, basically, if you want to go into clinical social work, you usually get paid more and more job opportunities with an LCSW license. In my state, there is the LCSW, and then there above that is LICSW, which is Licensed Independent Clinical Social Worker. So with a master's, I can just go right into taking my LCSW exam, whereas the LI is definitely higher. But some states don't even have an LICSW. They just stop at LCSW. Depends on your state and what you can do with that license. I highly recommend looking that up and seeing if you want to go down that route eventually. It's not something you have to decide right now if you're just starting a social work program, but it is something to think about later on. I am going to make a whole video on kind of like what to think about or what to know before you apply for graduate school. And I'm gonna be going more in depth about kind of choosing a school in that video. I plan to make that soon, so I will discuss more about that then. I don't want to have this video be too long. I just want to focus on the master's program. So I'm just going to jump right into the 5 classes that I took this semester. 3 of the 5 classes that I took this semester carried into last semester. There are 2 new ones that I took. So I will start with one of the new ones I took is called Advanced Professional Development. And this is a capstone class, and it basically is 3 segments: a diversity segment, a policy segment, and an ethics segment. I really enjoyed this class. It came with 3 papers and 3 activities to go with that. So there was a policy paper, an ethics paper, and a diversity paper. I think like 5 to 7 pages long, that kind of thing. And 3 different professors who were knowledgeable in that subject actually taught it. So my professor who's knowledgeable in diversity taught that. The ethics professor at the school taught that. I really enjoyed that class, and basically it's kind of like, it sounds like diversity. We learned about a lot of cultural considerations to consider in practice. The policy segment is all about, how to, I guess, address policy related issues in the field, about policy, the importance of it. Ethics is self-explanatory as well. We just learned a ton of ethical related things in social work, and it was more of like the gray area ethics. There's like the non-gray area, I guess, that is like obvious, like don't do fraudulent billing, don't forge signatures, respectful client, social worker boundaries, that kind of thing, that the things are kind of obvious. But the gray area is really where this ethics professor got into kind of like ethical dilemmas, when policy doesn't match with what our NASW Code of Ethics says, that kind of thing. It's super important, and I really hope every program has that kind of class. Next was clinical social work. So this I carried into last semester, and it is basically just an in-depth, more look at clinical social work. So we went over a lot of things from like substance abuse, narrative therapy, play therapy, LGBTQ related issues, terminations, etc. So it's more like specific subject work in the clinical social work area, whereas if you went down a macro path in my program, you would do more macro social work class related classes. For my research class, this also carried in from last semester. It is basically just writing one long paper all semester, similar to last semester, but instead of a case study, this time I chose to enhance a clinical skill of mine, and I chose Socratic questioning. My paper as a research paper regarding how I'm going to improve on that clinical skill. That one was pretty much just all semesters researching literature reviews and doing work on my own clinical skill. My next class I'm going to talk about is sexual orientation and gender identity, and I took this class as an elective. I chose this one myself, so we had to choose 3 electives total for our program, and this was my final elective. So kind of just like it is called, we talked about sexual orientation and gender identity. So we talked about specific instances that would affect the LGBTQ plus community. So this had 2 small papers that are like 2 pages long, and then it had 2 bigger papers, so like the midterm and the final, those were like 5 to 7 pages long. We went into specific LGBTQ plus related issues, such as like people of color in the LGBTQ plus community. We talked about affirmative care, transgender related issues. We talked about a lot about politics came into that. We also did like public health related things, especially during what's going on in the world right now. So this whole class was just centered around sexual orientation and gender identity. Yeah, that was super interesting class. I really loved that. I'm really glad I chose that as an elective. Lastly was my field class, and we just talked about our field placement when we went to class. Any questions we had, that kind of thing. We had a couple papers to do, I think 1 or 2, but that was like, we had 3 like practice reflection papers, so little 2-page papers that reflected on what we did in internship. That was pretty simple. It really is just a seminar talking about our field placement. Every class, our professor gave us a new article to read regarding some type of social work learning. So it wasn't just like specifically focused on talking about field, but we did learn other things along with it. Yeah, that's essentially what that class was. And yeah, I plan on making a whole separate video on my internship. Just like I did with my bachelor's degree video and the internship, my experience and tips and things like that. I plan on making one solely dedicated to this internship, so I won't get too into it now, but I was at a high school. We got to choose what kind of area and population we wanted to work with. So yeah, that was an overview of this past semester. If you have any questions, please put them below and I'll try to answer them as best as I can. If anyone else who has gone through a Master's of Social Work program wants to add in any tips or anything that I missed that their program covered, please feel free to do so. Social work is all about helping people and advocating for them and being aware of the social injustices that go on and trying to help that. I always kind of make it a metaphor as social work gets to like the root of the problem. There's a lot of band-aids that are placed throughout our society and things that, like, I guess I would say maybe if you want to call it that, whereas social work really tries to get to the root and solve the problems and as best as we can, I guess. And definitely this job, I think, is for people with empathy, empathetic people. We help the vulnerable, marginalized populations, and I got really lucky in my program with amazing professors that told a lot of their experiences and stories throughout social work. People can definitely get burnt out pretty easily. It's definitely a career that's really hard sometimes too. It can get hard because you're listening to really traumatizing stories, or just really sad for the clients going through things that, you know, you might know it's going to take a while to help or get to the last step. It can be hard on days that you're going through stuff in your personal life. With having empathy also comes a lot of emotional drainage as well sometimes. So I guess just being aware of that. I always recommend just getting a therapist for yourself if you can. That would be really helpful. Supervision should be offered, especially as a student, which would be helpful as well. I hope this video helped. If you are getting into a social work program or you're in one, congratulations. If you're graduating, congratulations. I will see you in my next video and look forward to more content related to my internship and grad school and things like that. But for now, I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy, and I will see you soon. Bye.